Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to this little bonus episode of Fantasy NBA. Today, it's a sell high or stay put edition. The first one of those, I think, that we're doing, because last week I mushed it all together into one episode. This week I split them up into two, and for this one, I am thrilled to be joined by Josh Lloyd. Welcome back, Mr. at @redrock_bball. Sporting a delightful stash. I can't believe I didn't see that yet. That thing is amazing.
It's a luxury stash, Dan.
I screwed you up there. I had your microphone turned off on my end, and no one got to hear what you said about it.
Oh, I just said a cracking joke. I said it was a luxury stash.
Oh, well done, sir. I don't have a rim shot sound effect on this thing. Oh, I like that a lot. I asked you before we went on air how long it would take you to get a stash of that thickness from scratch. You said 2 weeks, which feels abrupt. Like that could sneak up on you.
Yeah, it's I am pretty hairy. It does grow pretty quickly. Look, I didn't grow this from scratch. I just shaved the beard off around it, but it doesn't take that long for me to get hirsute.
That's nice. I like it. Well, welcome aboard. I hope you are. And actually, I think I'm fairly certain that I saw Twitter confirmation that rides are available right now. Yeah, correct.
That we are selling those tickets 2-for-1s at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, and a deal, no less. Oh my God. Be still my heart. I am Dan Vespers. This is Fantasy NBA Today. He's Josh Lloyd. I got a list of, I think I said 6, right? Yeah, 6 players
right, yeah.
that are off to pretty damn fast starts. And I just thought, and none of these are, out of the blue weirdo names, but I figured we could go through a few of them, possibly all, actually, and get your thoughts, Josh, on whether these guys are sell highs or whether you think this is sustainable. Sound all right?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Why the hell not? So let's get into the first one. The first name on the list is, and I'm actually working down the board in terms of overall rank right now, the mighty Tyrese Maxiell, who's off to an impressive start this year, 11 games in. He's averaging 38 minutes a ball game. That might be the most impressive number of all. 27.5 points, 3.3 threes, 5 boards, almost 7 assists, almost a steal, a block, 49-95 splits, and only 1.5 turnovers per game. Josh, what do you make of this start from Maxiell? Is this a sustainable beginning? And if it's not, I feel like there are sort of there's a little bit of a gray area there. Maybe even if it's not fully sustainable, is something near it sustainable?
Well, there are obviously bits and pieces of it that are and that aren't. I think the one that stands out is the block numbers. Like, it's just probably not going to be at that level. What did he have last season? Like 10. He had 8 blocks last season. He's had 10 this season already. So like that's probably not going to hold at that level, but the minutes will. I think the usage is fairly consistent. He also has done the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, where he's gone from a good free throw shooter to elite. He's jumped 10 percentage points. So does that hold? Like 85 is great. 95 is amazing. So which one of those is real? Like, it's probably going to push back a little bit there. But, the assists, the rebounds, the threes, he's an elite 3-point shooter for 3 years. Like, I'm not really going to count on that to fall back too much. The minutes, the usage, that's all fine. It's probably just a little bit on blocks, maybe a little bit on free throw percentage. Is it a sell high? Sure. Would I do it? I don't think so. Like, what for? Like, you're not going to get a top 7 player back. That's not going to happen, right? No one's going to give you Halliburton or Shai or, let's say, Luka or Jokic or Embiid. It's not going to happen. No one's going to do that. So what would they be offering to Kevin Durant? No thanks. I think I'll just stick with Maxey in that spot. Like, you're not actually going to pull this off for someone who is of commensurate value. And how far down is he going to fall? Not that far would be my guess.
Yeah, you kind of answered my follow-up question there, which is, what would you consider taking back for Maxiell right now? Is there anyone on the board you're thinking, maybe I could get that dude and it would actually still be worth it? Because it feels like, you get kind of close to it being worth it with Kevin Durant. Is there someone near him that you think you could get back and you'd actually want?
I don't think so. Like, that's the thing. Like, who am I getting? Like, Durant, old, obviously, hasn't played with Booker and Beal. Who knows when that's going to happen?
Yeah, that's been fun so far.
And yeah, awesome. And the difference between them, is it sizable? Like, maybe it's not. We also have to just think that maybe this is sustainable. Maybe he can be a 94% shooter from the line. Maybe he does, because it's not like he's averaging 2 blocks a game, right? He's averaging less than 1 per game. Maybe he can do that. I don't know that. It's not like it's coming on ridiculous numbers. It's not like he had 1 7-block game and then 0 for 4 in a row. But look at it here. It's 1-1-2, 1-3, 1-0. Now, he had 1 block in his first 4 games, so maybe that's more realistic. But in the end, even though he's elevated to first round because of this increase in blocks, you don't have Tyrese Maxiell for blocks. These are such small numbers anyway. This is 3 blocks a week, 4 blocks a week. Doesn't matter. Unless I get a top 6 player back, what for? Just roll with it. Just hold him.
All right, let's go to player number 2 on the list. Also way up near the top. And I did a show on him this last weekend, but it feels like more needs to be said. And that's Scotty Barnes, who's currently ranked 10th in 9CAT, 35.5 minutes per game. He's at 21 points, 2 threes, almost 10 rebounds a game, a little under 6 assists, 3.3 combined defensive stats. I will say that in 3 damn separate words if it's the last thing I do. 47.5 from the field, 76% at the free throw line. We've already seen some slight erosion out of him. Not much. He was sort of mid-first, now back end of the first, hair-splitting 101 here. But where do you think Barnes is headed over the next, say, 3 or 4 weeks? Can the defensive stats stay that high? Is that where people should be worried? Should they not be worried at all? And is there anyone out there you think you'd take back?
This is an interesting one because, like I think most people, I was not this high on Scotty Barnes. I was probably lower than nearly everybody else because, again, I just wasn't impressed with what he did last season. And then he came out of the gate.
By the way. So just if you're going to knock yourself, you can knock me too. I was not very high on him.
Yeah, because I didn't expect him to go from 0.8 blocks to 2 blocks. Like, nobody should have expected that. I also didn't think that Pascal Siakam would have become a 20% usage player, which is what has happened. Although that's sort of been a little bit all over the place. Now, the thing with Barnes, and because I am a professional broadcaster, Dan, that's sort of what I alluded to earlier in terms of averaging 2 blocks per game. With Maxey, like Barnes wasn't going to keep that up, and he has 3 blocks total over his last 4 games. So that was coming down. He also didn't even hit 20 points in 3 of his last 4 games. The slowdown has started here. So when you look at what's happened over the last 3 games, 19, 8, and 5 with 2.3 steals, 0.3 blocks, 45 and 78. That's completely reasonable, and you might add 5% onto that. So would anyone give you a top 12 player back? Almost definitely not. But if they did, I would 100% take that because I think we've started to see how the numbers of Barnes will be impacted when things normalize. And yeah, but in a lot of these cases, just roll with it. Like, I'm not taking a top 30 guy back. I'd rather just see where this goes. But if someone wants to buy into him getting back to being a top 10 player or consistently being that guy, then I take that.
Now, I'm going to split some hairs. What if somebody offered you, say, like a top 20 type? Someone you feel and when I say top 20, I think you and I both sort of know, but I'll explain for the viewers. Someone reliably in that range, not someone who's either hot or cold or on like a 1-week heater. Someone that we all feel consensus is that kind of guy. Is that high enough to pique you on a Scotty Barnes trade?
For a top 20 guy, probably. Yeah. I think, let me have a look at where I've sort of got his numbers projected rest of season. I've got him around that mark. Yeah. But that's because I've got him there sitting at 1.5 blocks, which I'm probably going to have to reduce. I'm not sure he sticks at 1.5 blocks. And that's really going to be the sticking point to me because I obviously don't buy the shooting numbers that he put up early on, and that has pulled way back. But to me, it's going to be determined by these block numbers. So top 20, I don't know, in a general rule down with a trade, unless I know that I feel confident that I'm getting a pretty sizable win, I'd rather just stick with what I've got because we have seen it. We have seen him produce at a high level. We have seen it drop off a little bit, but there's no reason that it can't push back up a little bit. So unless I'm getting something where in 80% of my simulated brain outcomes, he's going to be, I'm going to win, then I'm not going to do it. So could he foreseeably be top 20? Sure. Could he foreseeably be top 10? No. So if you give me a top 12 sort of guy back, I'm okay with it. Top 20? Probably not.
By the way, can we acronym simulated brain outcomes to just SBOs going forward? Is that
SBO sounds very, very good. I'll see how often I can remember getting that in there. But yeah, SBO sounds good to me.
Yeah, we're going SBOs from this point forward. Third name on the board, Chet Holmgren, who everyone will be very excited to remember was the lone young person I did have on the Dan Vesper Old Man squad. I have to give myself a small pat on the back because every once in a while I do venture into the youth. This was one.
Dan, that's gonna get you on a watch list again.
Oh yeah, man. Listen, you got to fill out a bunch of forms before you move. It's why we just stay in one apartment our whole lives here. Should I joke about that? Oh well.
I don't know.
Nope. It's fine. I think everybody knows do I have to do this thing? Like you say, we're joking. Obviously, everybody knows we're joking. This is not a laughing matter. I didn't think it was going to be this good. Holmgren is currently ranked 15th. Obviously, a lot of that is tied up in 2.2 blocks, but overall, he's really been fantastic. 16 points, almost 8 rebounds, I guess 7.5. I rounded up. A steal, 2.2 blocks, 53% from the field, 90 at the free throw line. I think he was a 55, 50, 90 guy before their last 2 ball games or something crazy like that. I've got to believe this is coming down a little bit, Josh. But where do you draw the line with Holmgren? What kind of player would you take back? Would you only sell him for somebody that also is a second rounder? I want to give myself a bunch of credit, but I also think that this is probably one that comes back to earth a little bit. Where do you stand on him?
Yeah, look, there are certain things here. There's just no way, right? Like, do we buy him as a 90% free throw guy? I don't think so. I think he was 75 or 74 at Gonzaga, maybe 77, but it wasn't even 80. I know that much. And that's a big, big leap, right? Is he this good? Look, you might get 2 or 3 90% free throw shooters in the NBA in a season. So I'm not going to buy that he's one of those. I'm not going to buy that he's a 46% three-point shooter. And we've already seen 29% over the last 3 games. Like, it's going to fall back. But in saying that, over the last 3 games, he's at 1.3 blocks. He's very easily, to me, a 2 to 2.5 blocks player. So it sort of sits in the middle there. I don't buy him as a second round guy. I think in the late 20s, mid 30s, later third round sort of a zone is probably more fair, with some expected regression in 3-point shooting, which has already happened, in free throw shooting, but maybe a bump there in block numbers. I don't think they're going to be pumping 35 minutes a night into him. He's playing 30 at the moment. That seems about reasonable. So, look, if I'm getting a top 20 guy back, absolutely more than happy to do that sort of a trade with him. But I think more third round, maybe even ends up as an early 4th is where we can look.
Would you consider someone maybe in the 25 to 30 range, like an early 3rd coming back, or is that not enough of a profit to say I'm moving off of my guy?
Yeah, like what's the purpose? Is that just a trade to do a trade? Like, what
a little bit, yeah.
Getting? Because like we know with rankings, Dan, is that the difference between 25 and 28 is
none.
It's 1 block every 3 weeks. Like, it's not a big difference. It's hitting 1 extra 3 across a month or something like that. Like, these differences are so small that when we're going to split hairs and think that these players, I love this word that someone told me earlier in the off season. As the ordinality of rankings, where we look at 25 is the same difference to 26 to 27 because they're ordinal numbers. When that's not how it works. That's not how these ranking values work. None of it is like that. And the guy who's 29th is not 3 spots better than the guy who's 33rd. It doesn't work in any degree like that. So if I'm getting such small return on that, I drafted Chet because I like him. That's why I assume I drafted him, or I like what he did. So why not? Why not just hold him? Unless I'm getting tremendous value and someone wants to completely overreact, then just hold on.
Yeah, and then, you look at it from sort of a player fit standpoint as well, which we obviously can't. We don't know your team. Did you draft Chet because you badly needed those blocks? Did it turn out that now those are superfluous? Then all these things add up to you can probably figure out better than we can if they small gain like that, going from someone who may be number 32 to someone who may be 29, but maybe you need more threes, more scoring, more assists, whatever it is that you're hunting for with that move. But yeah, you're right. It probably is a trade to make a trade. But I guess I could maybe I'll play devil's advocate here. What if you could do a trade to make a trade and turn Chet into the guy who's 24th, and then turn that guy into the guy who's 21st, and turn that guy the guy who's 18th? This may take you 4 years, but
is this like the guy who got a pencil and turned it into a house?
Yeah, basically. I think it is that story. That's right. I don't know how much time we have.
Sure, but who's got the time and energy to work that? Yeah, I'm sure you could do it, right? Just swing a guy every single week. But eventually, I reckon your league mates are going to get pretty annoyed with you trying to swing a trade with them every five minutes. And so that there is a level of diminishing returns that people go, bro, look, we just did this trade. Like, what are we doing? We're not doing it again, because we are dealing, of course, with humans and not like in a completely void scenario where we're just dealing with numbers. Like, people are going to get annoyed if you're just constantly flipping. I know, that's how I am anyway. If someone's like every day sending 3 trade offers to you, I'm just like, no, like, even just out of principle, nah, I'm not doing that, mate. Like, come on, what are we doing? If you're doing this all day, we're not going to keep going along those lines.
Yeah. All right. Good point. And this is the kind of thing where if you're in more than one league, you simply don't have the time to do it anyway. Next name on the board, Herb Jones, who's a very interesting case study because I, like many folks, thought that he was coming into this year as steals and almost nothing else. And so far this year, he's been a lot of steals, which is not a surprise, but some other stuff also. Both percentages have been good so far this year. He's blocking a shot and a half. I know CJ McCollum's out. That's been somewhat helpful, but overall, he's just been better than expected. Can it hold? I am skeptical. Where do you stand on Herb?
I think you should be skeptical. I actually did some research on Herb earlier today for something that I was looking at. I was adjusting some of his projections. Went, oh my god, like these numbers are insane. Like, so I was like, how am I that wrong on Herb? And I'm looking at him as, like you said, a steals specialist. Like, how was I that wrong? And then I went and looked at his numbers, and he's hitting 84% of his twos over the last 4 games. He is didn't miss a 2 in the last game, but he's at 69% for this season. He's at 54 last season on 2-pointers. The shot blocking is huge. Maybe that sticks. He blocked 0.6 per game. Like, do we expect him to have jumped up a full block per game? Has he changed that much in terms of shot blocking prowess? I don't know. He's a good defender, but that's not going to hold. But then everything else, like his usage is actually down from last season. He's still playing 31 minutes. He's still like, his free throws are also like 12 percentage points higher. I don't buy any of that stuff. So while he is rolling at the moment, he's putting up amazing numbers. It's on the back of last 4 games, 3.3 steals, 1.8 blocks, 61% from the field and 94 from the line. I've never seen a bigger red flag for regression in my life. Like, it's just, there's absolutely no way. Like, it's just not going to stick.
What do you think you could get for him right now? That's where I've been getting stuck on Herb.
Well, that's the other thing is I went to look today because that's why he came up, because I was doing my show on terms of streaming, and he's only rostered in 64% of leagues or 62% of leagues. So
wow,
I think not much, because if there's still like a large percentage of people not even bothering to grab him, and maybe that's just all the points league guys, maybe that's true, but he is absolutely rolling at the moment in terms of production and still hasn't even cracked 70%. That makes me think that nobody's buying it, and they shouldn't, because you shouldn't buy these numbers. It's not because it's not even like, well, of course he's getting this big boost because CJ is out. He's not. Like, it's 14.7 usage over the last 4 games. That's nothing. He's not. Is he averaging assists? Oh no, 2.5. He's just into a really, really amazing zone in terms of getting defensive stats. That's all it is. And shooting the absolute lights out, which is just, it's not going to hold. Like, there's just no way. So if I could get any top, let's say 80 player back, I would do that, because there's just, I don't see how so much of this, or maybe even top, let's say top 70. I just don't see how any of this stuff holds.
That's kind of what I was saying earlier today about Lou Dort. Do you have the same feeling?
My God, yes.
He wasn't on my list for today, but that's like the same idea of, if I can get anybody in like the 7th round or better, I'm doing it.
Yeah, the Lou Dort ones. I was replying to a comment on someone today and said, man, Josh always hates Lou Dort, but every year he produces. Like, no, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
He does not produce ever, apart from this 7-game run. Like, he's not. He's like a 38%. He's like I like to call him, Midwest Dylan Brooks. Like, he's just bad at so many different things. Like, but he's on fire to start this season. Elite shooting numbers, and for some reason, he's just cranked the steals up to 20. Which, again, as a good defender, he never brought them in that quantity in the past. So yeah, it's a very, very similar feeling for me on Dort and Jones.
Yeah, I didn't mean to have Dort get hit with a stray there, but it hit me. Like, that's like the range that I'm looking to try to get back. If you can lock in something, I think folks should do it. Here's an interesting one. Bogdan Bogdanovic. He and I'll wear this one. He almost wasn't even on my radar coming into this year. I know his steals rate is high, but it feels like a lot of the other stuff isn't that crazy right now. His numbers on the season, 15 points, roughly 3 threes, only 3 rebounds, only 3 assists. The steals and blocks are high. He's at 2 combined defensive stats, which admittedly good in only 26 minutes. 44% shooting. He hasn't missed a free throw yet, but I think he's only taken 12 of them so far this year. Is anything besides steals about to fall off a cliff with Bogdan? Or is that the one area to be worried? Or I guess I may have just not looked hard enough at him.
He was a guy that I was looking at maybe like round 12 sort of an area, but I wasn't, not a huge target guy. I actually was just talking with Dan Titus about him earlier today. You're right. The steal stuff is very high, but it's not outrageous. Like, he averaged 1.1 steals in 21-22 and 1.1 steals the year before that. He's at 1.5 and 0.4 steals per game. Dan is nothing.
Yeah,
it's
it happen.
What is it? 1 extra steal every 2.5 games. I think that's how that we work there as I do my SBOs on that one. I think that's like
people already forget what SBOs were is my great fear. Oh,
I kind of, was it simulated brain output, something like that?
Something like
anyway,
that.
He was so it's 1 steal every 2.5 games. Like, it's not actually that hard to get that number. And steals, as I'm sure you're aware, Dan, are the most variable stat game by game, week by week, and year by year. So a guy that averages 1.7 might average 1.2, they might average 1.6. It's all over the shop. That we get that. That's fine. So that's up, but it's not sitting at 3. It's sitting at 1.5. Who cares? Like that's actually okay. You're right. The free throws, he hasn't missed one, but that will come down. Yep, all good. Everything else from him looks like relatively sustainable, except, and this is a key to a lot of people. You look on your app, you look on your Yahoo, hopefully you don't look on ESPN, you look on Fantrax, whatever, and you see the player stats and it gets presented to you. But they don't show you what the 2-point percentage is. And that is usually like over 50% of what the field goal equation is. And Bogdan is shooting 63% on twos. And he shot 51 last year, 51 the year before that, 52 the year before that. So that is a 16 to 17 percentage point drop that is coming. And even if he improves to 56 or 57, it's a double-digit percentage drop that is coming at some point, and that impacts so much of what he does. Now, could he improve his three-point shooting from 35? Yeah, maybe he gets 38, 39. But that is such a gigantic drop-off on that twos that is probably going to stick. Like 63% from two is like Mark Williams range. Well, it's actually not. Williams is higher, but it's like Mitchell Robinson or Mark Williams or someone. Right? That is such a high level.
I was going to say Mark Williams is like 1,000 right now. So
yeah, but that's 60 plus is, I think, Steph Curry. Good. Or it's like a center. Like that's basically what it is. And that is holding that. Because you look at his field goals, he's hitting 44% of his field goals. Like that's not a high number. Yeah, because it's really being buoyed up by the fact he's taking a lot of threes.
Ton of them.
And they're coming through at the normal level. But if that 2-point percentage drops, he becomes like a 41% shooter. Doesn't impact his overall effectiveness because we know that field goal percentage is not a great indicator of a player's efficiency because of the way threes are included. But in fantasy, that doesn't matter. But that number is actually being held steady by a 2-point rate that won't hold.
How far do you think that would push him down the board? And maybe the more important question is, would you consider trying to squeeze like that same top 80 range guy that we just talked about with Herb out of him, or just see how this goes for Bogdan? Because it does seem like they like him.
Oh, they do. He's really useful. He's very key to what they do, but he's got that knee problem. They don't pump big minutes into him consistently. Yeah, would I take a top 70 guy? Yeah. Would anyone offer it? Almost definitely not. Like I don't think anyone's going to do that, but I would take that, yes.
Would you take top 85?
No, I don't think so. Because like I said, like the 2-pointers might come down, but the threes could come up. He could be a 40% 3-point shooter instead of 35, and that balances it a little bit. And with his increased volume there, that's solid. So, if he could be around 100, and what's the point of getting an 85 player there? If I get top 70, it's a big win.
Yeah. All right. Well said. Let's do one last name, and that is RJ Barrett, who I never thought it would come to this, but someone on Twitter did yell at me. Guys,
I don't even have to look it up.
Guys can change. He can magically become a vastly superior shooter to anything he was in the past. Like he hasn't been in the NBA for like kind of a long time already. Okay, I'm going to frame this question differently, because just asking, is he a sell high, isn't even doing users a service at this point. The question is, how high of a sell high is RJ Barrett? Is like, do you just ride this and see if he stays hot for another 2 weeks and then drop him when it happens? Or do you try to squeeze out like even a top 100 would be worth it? How bad does this get? Because we've all watched RJ for a while, and for category leagues, it can get real bad.
Yeah, so you're right. Like I've been yelled at about this before. I put a little clip out saying, look, it's going to fall back. And someone go, no, man, he's definitely improved. You're lying. You're just being a hater. Guys can improve. They said the same shit. I go, that's all well and good, right? Guys can improve. Totally. Everyone improve yourself. It's a great part of life.
That's right. Self-improvement, betterment. That's great. Good advice.
Literally nobody is a 50% 3-point shooter. Like nobody is, including this man who was 31 last season. Nobody shoots 50%. So you want to talk a decrease? Has he improved? Sure. Maybe he's a 37% shooter. 13 percentage points. That falls away. Has this man jumped up 10 percentage points on his free throws? I guess it's possible, but it's also improbable. So both those things drop off, and he's actually worse in rebounds than he was last season. He's doing the same with his assists, and his steals and blocks are at 0.7 and 0.3. It is the same RJ, except that he's hitting shots at a level which has zero chance of sticking. So everything else is literally the same, and he's only playing 31 minutes a night. It's not like he's getting 36, 37 minutes. It's not like he's pumping in gigantic usage. It's the same as it's been in the past. There's just no way that any of this sticks. He is ranked really highly at the moment. If I got any top 100 player, I would happily do it, understanding that this might continue for a week or two. If it continues for a full season, Dan, I don't know what I'll do. I'll do something pretty outrageous, but there is absolutely no way that it finishes this way for the entire season. Understand that I will take hits on this when he shoots 50% from three for the next 2 weeks, which could happen.
Could happen.
But then he'll shoot 10% for 2 months. Like there's no way. He is not a 50% 3-point shooter because literally nobody is. Nobody.
You and I need to figure out what absurd things we're doing if RJ Barrett shoots 50% from three for you. I might just light this board on fire behind me and do a show engulfed in flames. That's my promise. I mean 50% from three. RJ Barrett is now Luke Kennard, ladies and gentlemen. It's
even Luke Kennard doesn't hit that.
No, even Luke Kennard. And that man has laser sight.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, I think I promised I would get you out in 20, and it's more like 25. So it's time for me to let the great Josh Lloyd go. Let me close this window out so that not everybody is just staring at a weird board in between us. Look at that. Okay. Technology at its finest, or not so much. Josh is, of course, at RedRock_B-Ball, Locked On Fantasy Podcast, Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube, Basketball Monster. You're a busy man and premier mustache grower. What else you got going on? Did I miss anything?
Nah, that sounds about right to me. I think that's the mustache, obviously the most important part of that.
Yes, obviously, and that's why I saved it for last. That's a big one. Josh, thank you, my man. I really appreciate it.
No worries, Dan.
And that was the great Josh Lloyd. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I wanted to keep these shows sort of like in a nice little capsule. Thank you for the comments as we're rolling along here. We're not doing question and answer on today's show. Back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, I think. Yeah, Friday. We'll have our weekend review podcast. Follow Josh on Twitter at RedRock_B-Ball. I am at Dan Bespris. Please like, rate, subscribe, all that stuff on your way out of town. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. So long, everybody.